Hi, thanks for joining us. My name is Teresa, and today's video is called Exploring Positive and Negative Images. So in this video, what I hope to do is to introduce you to some new techniques that might help you create some more original artwork and try supplies that you've maybe never used before. So before we get started, I'm just going to quickly go over the supply list. White paper and black paper, which I have here, a number 2 pencil, an eraser, and again, I like to use an actual eraser as opposed to the ones that come on the pencil because generally they smudge. They're not the cleanest to work with. A ballpoint pen, tape. Now you can use any kind of tape. You can use Scotch tape if that's what you have handy. If you have painter's tape, it's less likely to tear the paper when you're done. And the type that I use, this is actually called artist tape, and it's available in places like Hobby Lobby and Michael's. And it's almost guaranteed that it won't lift your artwork off, like your pencil or your marks. I also have a Q-tip, and I'll explain what that's for in a little bit. And then we have white charcoal. Now, if you picked up a kit from the library, there should have been a white charcoal in the kit. If you don't have white charcoal at home, if you just have a white colored pencil from any set, it could be Crayola, RoseArt, doesn't matter. So a white colored pencil will do the same job. I have a black Sharpie. This is my black marker. And last but not least, a black and white high contrast photo reference. So what do we mean by high contrast? We want the picture to be black or white with no shading and no value. So in the kits that you got at the library, there might have been a picture of either Baby Yoda or the Mandalorian. So for our purposes tonight, I'm going to demonstrate with Baby Yoda because he's so popular. Now, black paper. If you didn't get a kit from the library and you're not sure where to get black paper, the easiest place would be a place like Michael's or I was going to say AC Moore, but they're not there anymore, Hobby Lobby. And the two types that they usually sell, this is called cardstock. You can hear it's kind of a thick paper. And this paper is for scrapbooking. And scrapbook paper always comes in a square. It's 12 by 12. So either one of those, if you want to buy this, if you like this technique and you want to try it, that's what I would recommend that you buy. Now, if you don't have that, obviously, that's not going to stop you. What you can just use is black construction paper. You have that at home. The only thing you have to be careful with the construction paper is that construction paper is not color fast. So in other words, you might put your drawing on it, but if it's in the light for a long time, over time, the black in the paper starts to fade and it's not really black anymore. The papers that I showed you, the scrapbook paper and the cardstock, are what they call color fast. So these should stay black indefinitely. Okay, so I looked at that. Now, let's see. Now, what you can do if you want to print out a different picture, say you don't want to use Yoda, you just go to the computer, and when you go to Google Images, ask for high contrast, and then put in whatever you want, like a high contrast picture, ballet shoes or whatever. Now, these are actually from Google Images, but what I typed in was pumpkin carving patterns. So this is free on the internet. You would use this to put on your pumpkin and carve out your pumpkin. The same thing with the Mandalorian. This is actually a pumpkin, you can see it on here, a pumpkin design that you would transfer onto your pumpkin and then cut out those areas. So they're only black and white, which is what we want for this. So most computers have photo editing on it. So like on my computer, which is an older computer, I just do it through my Word document and I can change any photograph into a high contrast photograph. But if you Google that, you can find tons of stuff online. Okay, so what I'm going to demonstrate is taking our, in this case, Baby Yoda picture, and I'm going to transfer it onto black paper. Now, if you didn't see the video last month, The Magic of Grids, I kind of explained this technique, but I'll go through it again. We want to transfer this image onto this paper. So what we're going to do is turn our image over, take our number 2 pencil, and then with this, not the tip of the pencil like this, but the side of the pencil, I'm going to darken the back of my Yoda. You want to be pretty consistent. You don't want too many white areas showing through. It should be pretty dark. And what this does is it's going to transfer this onto our other paper, whether the paper is white or black, it doesn't matter. And I just want to go over this again. I spoke about it last month, but this is called fan art. So fan art is basically you're taking an image that's out in the world, and you are creating your version of it. So it's usually, you think of it this way, you're going 2D, some image, to 2D. You're doing a drawing in 2D. Now, that's not to be confused. When you do a drawing of an actual object, that's considered observational drawing, and that's something different. This is just a quick way to get an image from one location to another. And I would use this in the classroom at the high school because if you can picture, I have 28 kids in front of me. Not all the kids had a lot of ability. Some had some ability. So you have all different levels of ability in the classroom. If I waited for each student, to freehand draw this onto their canvas or whatever, it literally could be days, because they would draw a little bit, didn't like it, they'd rip it up, they'd erase, they'd start over. This way, you're just transferring the image. It's very quick. And again, don't think of it as cheating. It's not cheating. Most artists work from photo references, and there's all kinds of different mechanisms to get images from one to the other. This is just an old school way that I'm going to show you. So now I'm going to take my black paper. I'm going to put Yoda in the middle, and then I'm going to take a piece of my tape, and I'm going to use this, but you can use Scotch tape, that's fine. And I'm going to make a little flap up at the top here, like so. Fold it over. Now you want to make sure you're working on a hard surface. This is my dining room table. I could work on a clipboard. You can work on your kitchen counter. You just don't want to work with like a tablecloth under it or a placemat, because it's too soft and your pen will go right through the paper. So now I'm going to take my pen, and what I'm going to do, what I'm looking for are all of the edges to go around, and I'm going to outline every shape that I see. I'm not going to worry about this circle. I really just want Baby Yoda. So I'm going to take my pen, and I'm going to go around. You don't have to be super exact. I'm going to go pretty quickly. So, and I'm pressing hard because I want the pencil to come through easily, so that when I look at it on the black paper, I can see my mark. Now, if you're not sure if it's going through, you could always peek under your paper and see if you can see your pencil line. And if you can, then of course you're fine. If you can't see it, one thing you might want to do is go back and put a little more pencil on the back of your image, so that when you do it, I'll just get his eyebrows in, get this. Okay, now we're down to his scarf. So you could darken the back of this again, put more pencil on it, and then redraw the edges, and it should be fine. Now, for a project like this where you're actually doing fan art, where you're copying something and you're going to look at an image that you've transferred, you want to work where the lighting is really good. Now I have an overhead light right where I'm working here, so that's going to help me see my pencil line. Now when I hold this up, you may not be able to see my pencil line because of the distance from the iPad, but when you do your own, you'll definitely see it. So I think I have everything. Now I'm just going to lift this up. See, oh, I didn't do his nose. Sorry about that. Nose and mouth and that. Okay. I don't know if I did those little circles. Let me see if I have everything. Hands, shirt, head. Okay, I think I have everything here. So, like I said, I don't think you'll be able to see my pencil. I'll hold it up, but I don't know if you'll be able to see it. But trust me, when you do yours, you'll be able to see it. So now, I'm going to take Yoda off. Okay. I'm going to take my, in this case, I'm going to use a charcoal pencil, but if you don't have the charcoal pencil and you have a white colored pencil, that's fine. Works just as well. Now I'm looking at my original Yoda here. I'm going to take my pencil and I'm looking at the lines that I drew, and I'm going to go over them now with my white pencil, my white charcoal. And again, if you don't have the charcoal pencil, again, white pencil, I'll show you the difference, what they look like when they're done. So what I'm using this, think of it this way, when you use this process, what you're doing is putting a map on your artwork of where you want to be and where you want to color. So in this case, since I'm going to be coloring in white pastel pencil or white charcoal, I'm going over my lines and making them white. It's going to be easier for me to see when I get done with this. And we are just about done. I need a zipper. I think that part of his jacket. Eyes. And again, you might not go this fast, but I'm just explaining that you should be able to see your pencil line with no problem at all. I can see mine. oops, his lips and his nose. Okay, so now, oops, missed one line here. Okay, now here's my Yoda picture that we started with. Here's my Yoda outline on black paper. So using this as my guide, I'm going to put that right in front of me. Now, I used to tell my students, if you think you're going to have a problem figuring out what's what you might want to do is put a little X in the areas that you know are white. I know the jacket is white. I know this is white. Oops, I didn't draw his fingers, but he's got 2 fingers here. Right, now, with my charcoal pencil, I'm going to fill in the areas that are white in the original picture. Now, the thing about charcoal pencils is that they're very soft. So when you're drawing with them, they do have a tendency, if you move your hand over the image, there's a chance you're going to smear it. But it's not the end of the world. That's why we keep the eraser handy. When you get all done, you can definitely clean it up. So now we're only going to use white charcoal today, but a couple months from now, we're going to do a lesson on value. And we're going to use white and black charcoal on the same drawing. And I'll show you how to use the two together to create value. But for now, we're really just looking for positive and negative. We want black and we want white. So I'm going to just fill this in. Now you can sharpen these with a regular pencil sharpener. Sometimes they're a little on the brittle side and you might get frustrated. You go to sharpen it and it snaps off in the pencil sharpener. You know, it's just one of those things. You'll get used to it. And they're not all like that. But if you drop the pencil a lot of times, what happens is the charcoal inside snaps and breaks into pieces. And then when you are going to sharpen it, like a piece will fall out, a piece will fall out. So try to keep them from rolling off the table too frequently, or that's what's going to happen. Okay, so we're just filling in. All right, now, you would keep doing this all the way down. And I would look at this. I know that the scarf, oops, I know that the scarf is going to stay black and his eyes stay black. But the highlights in his eyes are white. So I'm just going to outline his eyes. And then I'm going to pick up one that I already finished to show you. And again, it's hard to keep this from smearing. So I would wait till you're completely done and then take your eraser and go back and like I can see right here that I smeared it. So what I would do when I would get done, I would just go back and like clean that up a little bit. All right, so this, here's one that I finished. So all of this is charcoal. And if you look carefully, this side looks a little bit different. It looks a little smoother. And that's because I took a Q-tip and I blended the charcoal. So I'm going to put this on a board so you can see it better. So over here where I didn't do that, it's a little more rough looking. So I can go back with my Q-tip and see how I can smooth that out. Now they call something they call a paper stomp. You can buy them and we're going to use them when we do the value study because we'll be using white and black charcoal. And it's like a more refined version of this. It comes to a point and you can get very, very detailed in there. So this is really just to smooth out or white charcoal so it has more of a finished look to it. So that this side matches that side a little bit better. Okay, and I'm going to just smooth out his jacket a little bit. And all this does is you can see where the charcoal is that there's some black paper showing through. So when you do this with a paper stomp or a Q-tip, it's basically just smoothing that out and filling all those little areas in. Okay, so this one is done with the white charcoal pencil. But if you didn't have a charcoal pencil and you used a white colored pencil, this is what it would look like. Now, I think this might be Crayola brand, but I'm not sure. Now, if you look at them together, you'll see that the charcoal is a little bit more intense, like a little bit whiter white, if you know what I mean. But, again, very effective when you just use a white colored pencil, too. All right, so let me put those down, move him, and move this over to here. Okay, now let me show you, let's see. The other thing that you can do with black and white, people say like, well, what else can you use this for if it's not just for this? Black and white as itself is positive and negative, is also used in printing. So one of the things that I could do with it is, if I did a woodcut. A woodcut is basically a piece of pine. You have your drawing on the woodcut. You transfer it on, it's either black or it's white. And any place you want it to be white, when you print it, you take tools that they make and you remove some of the wood. And then when you ink this with ink and you print it, put a piece of paper on, you pull the paper off, the part that's black will be black in your finished picture, and wherever you cut the wood away, it stays white. So it's very dramatic looking. So this is something else that people use with just the black and white, positive, negative. The other thing that people use it for is silk screening. So here's an example of a silk screen that I made. So a silk screen is basically another image, and this time it's on fabric. And what you do with this, you can print it on paper if you want, or you can print it on fabric. So in this case, this was an image that I found on the internet. I like a lot of Halloween things, so there's a lot of stuff that I do that has like a skull motif. So what I could do is I took a shirt, okay, and here it is, silk screened onto a shirt. And basically, it's a shirt takes the place of your paper. It's on a table. Oops. It's on a table. You use your silk screen. There's special ink that you buy, printing ink. You squeegee it across your silk screen. You lift your silk screen, and voila, you have a silk screen shirt. So that's another way that we use positive, negative, with like no shading, no anything. It's either white or it's black, or whatever color ink you use. Now, let me just move this. Okay. So if you think you'd have difficulty when you transfer a picture, again, what I do sometimes, I could just make little marks where I know I'm going to turn it white, and then I use that. So let's see. Now, I want to show you two pictures I did over here. Now, like I said, I do a lot of Halloween themed things, and I had some photographs that I took of a Frankenstein mask when I was on the West Coast. And I've used those photographs for several different projects. Now, this is using positive and negative for a painting. Let me see if I can get that better picture. Okay. Now, this is just on paper. And what I did was I had my black and white photo reference. I put pencil on the back, as I showed you. I put it on my paper. I taped it down. I traced my shape like we trace Yoda. I just want all the edges traced. And then what I did in this case was I tinted the paper. I think I might have used watercolor because it's a very thick paper. So I used watercolor paint and I kind of put a wash on it. Then I took, I believe in this case, this might be black paint. Might be black watercolor actually. And any place in the picture, like when you look back at Yoda for a second, any place that was black in this picture, whatever was black in the Frankenstein picture, I went back and I turned it black with the paint. So what I'm left with is a high contrast painting that's just positive and negative. The positive is this part, the negative is the black part. Now, here's another one, a little bit different, but the same basic idea. It's a different photograph I took. Again, I made it into a black and white photo. I made it high contrast. And then I traced him on the same way that we did Yoda. I did pencil on the back of the picture, traced the head on. And then I decided to do two different colors. So what I did, I already had the image. I took my black Sharpie and I outlined it so I knew that on this side of the line, I wanted this to be one color. On the inside of the line, I wanted to make him green because in the movie he's basically green. Then when I was done, I believe this is Sharpie. I went back and I started to fill in all of my black area with my Sharpie. And I tried to get some of the little details, like the cracks in his lip, the little things by his eyes, the little hairs. When you leave those details in, it just makes it much more effective and a little bit more of a dramatic picture. So again, let's talk about fan art. This is fan art. This is my own photograph that I work from. So in theory, I could make copies of this and I could sell them. If you download something from the internet and it's fan art and you're just going to do it for yourself, that's fine. But you don't want to put in a picture of like Baby Yoda into a portfolio. Portfolio should be your original work and not a direct copy of either a photograph or an image that's on the computer. So when we do fan art like this, it's really for me to show you a technique that hopefully you'll use for something later on. So what I'm trying to introduce you to today, and that, about 2 months from now we're going to do another one, is to use charcoal pencils to do pretty effective drawings. Now, speaking of the paintings, another way that you could do it is, here's one I did of LeBron James for somebody. Now again, I worked from a photograph, so I took the photograph, I put it in my Word and my program Word on my computer, and I made it into a positive negative image. Then I transferred it onto a canvas, and this one, because there were so many tiny little areas, I knew that I would even be confused looking at my original, so I did go in and I made little X's where I knew I was going to paint black. And then I knew that, if I just looked at my picture and looked at the canvas, I could find out where I needed to be and what parts had to be black, and the rest I left white. So this started out as a white canvas. And the thing with the canvas is, like, this is one of those canvas boards. I'm sure you've seen them in the store. So a canvas board or a stretch canvas, when you buy them, they're already white, and that's called gesso that's on there. And gesso kind of seals the fabric, and it's made out of white paint with a binder like glue or plaster. So you can paint right on that, or if you want, you could actually change the color of the canvas and make it a different color. So let me show you an example of that. If I can find it here. Okay. Sorry, I'm not sure where I put that. So the way that you would change the color of the canvas, you could either, if you have paint at home, you could use acrylic paints to paint it, but you want to make sure that you use a very light color so that the black and the light color, that there's a lot of value contrast between the two. You can imagine if you had like a navy blue canvas and you put a black image on it, there's not going to be enough difference between the two for it to really look good. So you want to keep your colors in the background very, very light if possible. Now, if you don't have paint at home, but you have a canvas and you have markers, as long as you have washable markers, like this is Crayola, this one is Mr. Sketch. Washable markers basically mean that they're water soluble. So you could actually draw on your white canvas with this kind of a marker. You could take a brush, wet the brush, a little bit of water, and then move it around the canvas, and it works the same way as paint. You can change that white canvas into a colored canvas very easily, even if you don't have paint. So that's a go-to that you can use. Now, let's see. Now, some of the things that you can do. Now, we just did white on black, but here's a picture that was hopefully in the kit if you got The Mandalorian. I could also transfer this onto black paper, much like we did with Yoda. You can see the pencils on the back, and I can do a version where it's positive on negative. But I could also, if I wanted to, take this same picture with the pencil on the back, transfer it onto a piece of white paper, and in this case use my black Sharpie and make a black version, and then I have a white version. And you could mount them side by side for something really cool. These make great gifts, like if you have a friend that's really into The Mandalorian, this might be a good thing to make. But again, because they're copyrighted images, you wouldn't be putting this into a portfolio. You would use these techniques with your own artwork, or a photograph that you have like on your camera, and we all have like iPhones or smartphones. You could take an image from your camera, and most phones and computers have photo editing apps. You could change it into a black and white picture, and that's what you want to do. So that portfolio work has to be your own original work or from your own photographs. You don't want to copy anything that's copyrighted, and you definitely don't want to put that into a portfolio. Okay, so let me just show you one more thing. Now, from the time that you started drawing when you were little, you probably always drew on either a white paper or you drew on a light colored paper, and you either used a pencil or you used a pen or you used a darker marker and you drew on a white background. So what I'd like you to do is, with your white charcoal pencil, if you got one in your kit, is to play around with it. And the difference is that with the way that you learned to draw, the way you taught yourself to draw, you were always looking for the dark values in a picture, and you were using your pencil to darken things and shade them to make them look more three-dimensional. So the difference with this, the thing that's unique about it, what's going to make you think differently, is that now you're actually going to look for highlights in the picture. You're not looking for the dark areas, you're looking for the highlights in the picture. So if you practice with these pencils a little bit and you start to get a little more comfortable with it, this is what you can do. Now, I looked for a picture of the Mandalorian that I liked, and of course he's in every magazine and everything. Now this was a cute one of Baby Yoda, but I didn't care for this part. I thought I didn't want that in the picture. And then of course there's toy Baby Yodas. So I did find a photograph that I liked of the Mandalorian, and it was in a magazine. I'm not sure where I got it. But I didn't want the baby in, so I got rid of him. I didn't need all this excess stuff over here. It's kind of meaningless. It's just a wall, so I got rid of that. All right. Then I took this magazine picture. I put it in my computer, on my screen, and I changed it into a black and white picture. So this has a little bit of brown and a little bit of color, but I made it all black and white. All right. Then I took it, larger size, and this is what you can do with white pencil. So this entire picture is really just white charcoal pencil. The difference with this and what we did with Baby Yoda was just positive and negative with no shading. So once you get a little comfortable with the white charcoal pencil, or even a white colored pencil if that's what you have, you transfer your image onto your black paper. You can see the lines here where I transferred the image. Let me show you this. I'll come back to this a second. Oops. This was my black and white version. Here's my pencil on the back. I transferred it to my black paper. I took my white pencil. I outlined everything, just like we did with Baby Yoda. But then I went back and I looked at that photograph, and wherever I wanted it to be extremely white, like the highlight on his helmet, the highlight on his breastplate, the horn on the, whatever that thing was called, I forget. I just pressed really hard with the white pencil, so it's a very intense white. Where I wanted it to fade out, I just used the pencil a little bit lighter, and if I got too much white, then I just go back to my handy dandy eraser, and I can go and I can lift off any of that white charcoal if I don't want it there. So when I got all done with this, then I went back, and if I had any smudges, I cleaned them up. So you can see that there's some narrow areas, like in his helmet, narrow areas down here, a lot of details. So how do you get a big eraser like this in there? The best thing about a good eraser is that you just have to, for instance, take your nail. If you don't have a nail, you can use a butter knife, and just break off a piece. I'm going to break off this corner. Now I have a piece of eraser that comes to a point. It's very thin, and with this, I can get into any area in the helmet. I can get into the breastplate. I can remove anything I need to remove. So I usually have a bowl of these on my table, little pieces that I've pulled off in the past. And whenever I need like a really sharp, pointy part, that's the part I use. So this is what we're aiming for, is to use a white charcoal pencil to do an all-white picture on a black background. And how do we get there? We start with Baby Yoda. We transfer that. Use the white charcoal. Get used to how it goes on the paper. Get used to using the Q-tip to blend it in. Now, I did blend this. That's why it's smooth looking here. I want it to look like metal. So I did do a lot of blending here and a lot of blending on the helmet. I wanted it to be a little smoother look. Now, if you have a photograph on your phone that you really like, of anything really, could be not necessarily this, that's what you would probably use if you were going to do a picture for a portfolio. You want to take your own image, you want to transfer it onto the black paper, you want to use the white charcoal pencil. And again, this is like anything. It's just practice. The more you do it, the better it gets. It's like when you buy a video game, for instance. The first time you play it, you might get killed on the first screen. But after you go back and you play it, and you play it, and you play it, you go to the next level, the next level, the next level. Drawing is just like that. I mean, I've been drawing for years. And it's just the repeated repetition of doing this is what makes you better at it. So hopefully these little techniques that I show you in different, hopefully different materials that you might not have used before, are going to help you to, well, do fan art for one thing, but then also any of you that are attempting to get into art school, or you want to get into an art program like AP Studio Art at the high school, then these are the types of things you want to turn out so that, you know, it's a great piece for your portfolio. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to cover tonight. Now, next month we're going to do something with lettering and poster design, and then the following month we're going to go back to white charcoal, we're going to add black charcoal, and I'm going to show you how to do a very three-dimensional drawing on colored paper. So again, where you want to get the black paper, if you don't have this, you want to get either cardstock or scrapbook paper. If you have black construction paper, by all means, you can definitely use it. It's just that a year from now, it might not be as black as it is today, but fine. It's, you know, you're just getting used to it. You're practicing, you're learning the technique, so it's all good. Okay, that's all I have for you, and I hope I see you next month. Bye.